Which did you learn first, driving a car or riding a bike? I used to have quite strong feelings about this, but I've changed my mind since learning to ride a bike, so let's explore the pros and cons of each in a little bit more detail. First, what are the benefits of learning to drive a car before learning to ride a bike? This is what I did. I had my car license for about 4 years before getting my bike license, and I think in some ways it was helpful when learning to ride the bike. So first off, I drove a manual car, which helped when learning to ride a manual bike, because I already understood things like clutch control, and it was just a case of applying this to the bike. I think if you've never had experience with a manual transmission, it might have taken longer to pick up the basics of this. And I'm still learning how to get really good at this on the bike, but at least I started with some foundation and the theory behind how manual transmissions work. I also had knowledge of the highway code, and in my opinion, the highway code overview you receive on the CBT is quite basic. When I took my CBT, all of us had road experience, so maybe this is why we only had a brief overview. But there's definitely more to riding on the road than just being able to recognise things like speed limit signs. You need to be able to understand all the signs and what to do in certain situations. And it's only this advanced knowledge of the highway code that makes you a really good rider, and this is something that I learnt when I was driving the car. Which leads me on quite nicely to what I think was the biggest benefit of driving before riding the bike, which is I already had experience on the roads. So all I had to do was learn how to operate the motorbike. But other than that, I was already confident with the theory of things like lane positioning and anticipating hazards. I find it very easy to anticipate things like if a distracted driver is going to pull out in front of you, and I think my experience in the car has really helped with this. So driving a car has made me a better rider, but I don't think as much as riding a bike has made me a better driver, and this is where my changing opinion comes in. So I used to think you should always learn to drive a car before riding a bike, but now that I've learned how to ride a bike, I think differently. I'm much more aware when on the roads, and when I'm driving the car, I keep an eye out for motorbikes, and I have a much better understanding of where bikes might show up. So like if they're filtering or something, you might not expect them to be there. And this is only something that I've learned since doing it myself on the bike. Because of this, I think I'd have to recommend learning to ride a bike first. It just forces you to become much safer on the roads much more quickly. In a car, there's a bit more margin for error. You're surrounded by a big metal cage, so if you make mistakes, it's a little bit more forgiving. But I think if your ultimate intention is to ride a bike, then you should just go and learn how to ride the bike. Don't worry too much about, I should spend 1 year in the car practicing on the roads or something like that. Because I think ultimately, if you do end up getting a car license in the future, your bike experience is going to translate a lot more than your car experience would have to the bike. Not to mention it's a lot more fun. There's nothing better than going for a ride with friends in good weather. And things like the highway code or road experience, they're things that you'll pick up anyway. It might take you a little bit longer if you haven't done it before, and you might not be as good of a rider when you're first starting, but it's all part of the learning process, so I don't think this is really an issue. I'm interested to know what your experience is, which ones you guys learnt first, and how you felt one helped the other or didn't. So let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.